Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot, and I'm actually traveling at the moment. I'm in Mammoth, taking a couple days off, supposedly, but then I'm checking out the volcanism in the area. And as it happens, I'm doing a show as well. So it's not such a time off, but it's fun to be here. And I'm going to be interviewing, obviously, Keri, and it's really a treat to be able to have this wonderful person here. So her name is Keri Burnor, and hopefully I'm saying that right. And I'm going to bring her on the screen, and she is a whistleblower, and is going to be talking about her experiences dealing as a nun. And I guess I think she would be called a former nun. So we're going to get into all of those details, and so let me move the camera over to her, and hold on one second so we can get her on screen. And just let me say that if we have any interruptions in bandwidth, et cetera, it's because I'm at a hotel. So Keri, it's wonderful. I know you have the same name, but you spell it differently as me. So Sister Keri, do you go by Sister Keri, or how does that work?
Well, Sister Keri or Keri, either one is fine. And a lot of people have called me other names, so those two will work.
All right, great. And it's really a delight to have you on the show. You're quite, I don't know what one says, an accomplished whistleblower. You're very knowledgeable, and it's lovely to have you on the show. So thank you so much for the person who connected us, and for being right there and willing to come on the show. So I think what I'd like to do is start out with just talk briefly about who you are and how you ended up to become a nun in this day and age, because I think that's kind of unusual in modern day, America.
Okay, well, thanks for having me. And yes, I had an interesting upbringing. I was brought up with more Protestant sentiment, not necessarily church-going people, but I had a thirst for something more ancient. And when I was in high school, we used to have our bus stop at a Roman Catholic church. So I would take the opportunity to go in and visit and look around, and it captured me, just the mysticism of it. And so the funny part is that I was on my way out to get to the bus, and I bumped into the priest, Father Bob Gratterati, and he said, "Oh, I haven't seen you around here before." And I said, "Well, I want to be a nun." And he's like, "Well, are you Catholic?" I said, "Well, we go to the Grange Hall on occasion." And he said, "Well, you have to become Catholic first." And I said, "Well, after school, I'll have 15 minutes. And he's like, no, you have to go to the RCIA. So I went to the Rite of Christian Initiation for Adults, became Roman Catholic right away. And it takes about a year, and approximately about a month or so after my graduation from high school, I went straight into a convent, and that's in Still River, Massachusetts. The name of it was St. Benedict Center. In Still River. They also call Still River Harvard, Massachusetts. So I was there for about, 5 years, give or take. All the details on the story, because I'm recounting a lot of things that are many years ago, you can get for free now. It's a free download. It's probably about a 350-page book called Divine Challenge. You can go to clergyvictim.com, and I think it's on the third tab on the left. It should say free book Divine Challenge, and you're welcome to download that in a PDF format. So basically, the convent, or the convent that I joined, was founded by a Father Leonard Feeney and a Sister Goddard Clark, and that was back in 1943, give or take. And there's a famous case that surrounds the emergence of this monastery. And so basically this particular group of Catholics were very staunch, and they were displeased with a lot of the liberal, misinterpretations of what the Catholic Church taught in its dogma. And so they were the upholders of this teaching called extra ecclesiam nulla salus. Outside of the church, there is no salvation. And so when I was faced with the dogmas, because there were several of them, and I'm going to recount some of those actually here today, basically, I said, well, if this is what the Catholic Church taught from the very beginnings, then it has to be true. And you guys are sticking up for the truth. And so I became an exuberant, believer in these dogmas, and very in love too with the traditional point of view from the Roman Catholic, standpoint. See, in at the time, we did our masses in Latin, so we did everything the way it used to be before Vatican II. And so we did our services. We prayed several times a day in chapel, and we would do everything in Latin, which to me was very attractive. But I want to read to you what the dogma of outside the church, there's no salvation, what this means, because this is going to have a lot to say in the subsequent part of my story. It's a deep thing that comes up. So basically, there is but one universal church of the faithful, outside which no one at all is saved. This is by Pope Innocent III in around 1215 or so. We declare, say, define, and pronounce that it is absolutely necessary for the salvation of every human creature to be subject to the Roman Pontiff. This is Pope Boniface VIII from the Bull Unum Sanctum in 1302. Here's the big one. This one is just unbelievable. The most holy Roman Catholic Church, the Holy Roman Church, firmly believes, professes, and preaches that none of those existing outside the Catholic Church, not only pagans, but also Jews and heretics and schismatics, that would be Orthodox, etc., can have a share in life eternal. But they will go down into the eternal fire which was prepared for the devil and his angels, unless before death they are joined with her. And that so important is the unity of this ecclesiastical body that only those remaining within this unity can profit by the sacraments of the church unto salvation. And they alone can receive eternal recompense for their fast, their almsgivings, their other works of Christian piety, and the duties of a Christian soldier. Here's the awful part. No one, let his almsgiving be as great as it may, no one, even if he pour out his blood for the name of Christ, can be saved, unless he remain within the bosom and the unity of the Catholic Church, Pope Eugene IV, in around 1441. I bring these up because in the order I was in, this was actually our fourth vow. We had poverty, chastity, obedience, and then the dogma that we would uphold these dogmas even till death. I mean, if that got to the point, And so this organization that I was a part of, frankly, they really did find the truth of what the Catholic Church believed, but it was an inconvenient thing to come out in America in the 1940s. It was the wrong timing for it to come out. So that's important to know. Now, when I was in this monastery, this convent, basically we ate organic foods. It was a very good life. And of course, I also partook of studies. I went to college. I had, some studies in the convent also. I learned the Latin, etc. And so basically, with regards to my formation there, it was a very positive experience. And so I didn't look at these dogmas as a bad thing. I looked at them back then as, I have an obligation, to let people know that in order for, out of love for their soul, they need to come to the church in order to be saved. But later, this whole thing became a bigger problem. And that's very important that you know that up front, that was the position of the convent.
Okay, I want to stop you there. And that's a great beginning. But just for the purposes of this interview, and because it's such an extraordinary statement, and that you took it on board, I find that fascinating. So could you say, looking back at yourself, and I don't need to know your exact age, but you went in right out of high school, and when did you actually leave the church? At what year?
I left in 2008, so I was 17. I think that was in 1993. And then in 2008, that's when I ended up finding out the truth about Romanism. And basically what happened was, and I'll accelerate this, this is just very good groundwork so you know where I was coming from.
Right.
The convent, I had the blessing of my order and Mother Teresa Benaway, who was my superior, to leave in order to pursue a hermit lifestyle. And you have to do that under Canon 603. the Code of 1984 canon law. And that provision allows you to live your life, as if you're already a hermit. And then within 6 years, you can take your vows under the bishop of, in my case, Bishop of Worcester. So I followed through. And upon my leaving the convent with the blessing, I ended up going back to my hometown, which was around Spencer, Massachusetts. And there was a monastery I was frequenting. And the monastery, St. Joseph's Abbey. And it was absolutely beautiful. And I fell in love with the chant. I just loved the ambiance. It was just very conducive for me to prayer, apophatic prayer. So basically, in the course of my going to the monastery, I didn't talk to any of the monks for the first 8 months. Then I went from the chapel to help an elderly woman go to the ladies' room because the facilities were separated from the chapel. And in the course of doing that, I met with Brother Philippe Macram and Brother Patrick. And we both sat down and they said, you know what, are you the lady that prays in the side chapel? And I was so embarrassed. I'm like, I hope I'm not being loud, And they said, no, we just noticed that you're there and you put in a lot of hours, 8 to 10 hours of prayer a day. And I just said, well, I hope you don't notice me too much. I'm just trying to be with the Lord. So I would pray at this side chapel where there was, it's the lay side chapel in the monastery, and it overlooks the beautiful sanctuary area, and it's just absolutely gorgeous.
Okay, and can I ask you again, what state is this? Is this in the United States?
This is in Massachusetts.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. Okay, go ahead.
So then these monks said, you know what, you seem to fit in here. And they said, you should have a spiritual director. And so the priest actually offered to help me in that respect. So I went through a series of questions and interviews, and the abbot said after the interviews, well, it would be best that you not guide her, to Father Raphael Simon. He's the one who offered to do this for me. And I felt like I was dropped off a cliff. So I went to Father Isaac and asked him, well, what's going on?
Wait. It's better if you, what was this phrasing? I didn't quite catch that phrasing. So they denied you, but it's better if you do what?
Okay, it's better that the priest, Father Raphael Simon, they were saying this, the abbot was saying to the priest that it's better to not do spiritual counseling with me. After all these questions, I wrote my manuscript for them.
Right. Okay.
So I said, if that's what you need, if that's what the way it is, then that's okay. But later I asked Father Isaac about that, and I said, is there something missing? Is there, I did everything I was asked. I wrote my synopsis of my story, and Father Rayfield said, because he's a psychologist, he said, you've been tremendously healed, because I had not a very easy upbringing. And so at this stage, I went to Father Isaac, and Father Isaac said, I can help you with that. Don't worry, we'll get you, the help you need, and you have a calling, and we're going to counsel you, And so he said, I have a priest, his name is Father Dennis O'Brien, who understands, he's a parish priest, and he can help you. And I said, well, this is great. So I took advantage of this relationship for 2.5 years. And if you're going to become a hermit, you usually pick a spirituality. So I picked the Cistercian spirituality. And when you're under a specific umbrella of spirituality, you are supposed to be counseled by them into that spirituality.
Okay. Now, can you clarify what is this particular, what are you saying? What is that particular spirituality, that title you're giving it, Cistercian? What is that?
Cistercian, and thanks for helping me clarify this, because I forget the audience may not all be Catholic here. Cistercians are the Benedictines that are more strict. They opened their monasteries in Citeaux, France in 1098. Basically what they did was they said, we're not going to do teaching, we're not doing outside, apostolates or works. We're going to just pray and separate ourselves from the world, but live in community. And it was absolutely attractive to me. It wasn't to live a life of a hermit. These monks were living together, but for me, I was able to find a rule by St. Aelred of Rievaulx, a Cistercian, who accommodated writing for his sister who wanted to be a hermit way back in the 1000s. So I presented this, the rule of life for a recluse, and they said, this is a brilliant idea. And they were very supportive of me. There was a lot of people there that treated me as a sister, and I was invited to dinners at, every, Thursday nights. I mean, that wasn't normal. Normal guests didn't have that kind of open access. So I befriended Brother Philippe. I befriended a lot of the monks. And all of a sudden, in 2001, I'm actually at the retreat, at the monastery. They opened their doors for women, for retreatants for women, because prior to that, they didn't have that available. They only welcomed men, but at that time. So I was on retreat, and I came across the book, The Contemplative Experience. It's written by, Father Chukong, Joseph Chukong. So I happened to be in the hallway and bumped into him. This was the cloister guard. And that was because I was at another monk's profession, Brother Adams. And he basically said, well, sure, I'll sit down with you. And I said, I have this thing, I read your book and I'd love to talk to you about it. And he said, of course. He says, well, I just happen to be the retreat master this week, and I'll go ahead and we'll set up a time. So we set it up for Thursday, and that was the 23rd of August, 2001. So I go into this meeting with the priest, and like I said, I've been at this monastery now for about 2.5 years, and we've grown. There's been a relationship, and everybody knew my desire to be a hermit and to be living on land abutting the abbey, but not, my having I'd be self-sustaining. I wouldn't be bothering them for any support. Just the liturgies, that's all. So at this stage, that's when I go into the meeting, and we went on for maybe an hour and a half or 2 hours or so. And the whole tenor of the meeting completely changed from supporting my calling to, well, maybe you need to join one of our convents. And there's one in Rentham, Massachusetts. And I said, wait, I don't understand. You're telling me to join a convent, yet I'm working towards my goal of getting the hermit vows, and everything's changing, and I don't understand. And he said, well, if you want me to meet with you and continue spiritual direction, then we're going to have to agree that you would be willing to leave the monastery. And I said, wait a minute. You yourself told me 1.5 years prior, I've written very extensive journaling, that you were in support of my calling. I said, why is this changing? And he said, there's monks here that were having temptations towards you. And I said, well, that's their problem. I'm not jumping on any monks. I said, I'm just trying to pray in the side chapel and just be close to Jesus. And I feel his presence in this chapel. So I partake of the sacrament of confession. And this is where the priest comes out, gives me a hug, and he rubs his chest on mine. Now, I didn't know what that was called, but there is a canon law term for that. John Stobierski, an attorney, actually told me that's a frottage, when a man is rubbing his chest against a woman's. To me, I didn't know how to compute that because I wasn't sexual. I was asexual. I'm an asexual. And so I didn't have that background to understand what was happening, except for that it was strange. I was thinking maybe he thinks he's a woman. I don't get it. So then when I went to go grab my books, Father Chukong came out and grabbed my left breast, and it was very quick, And so I was like, what's going on here? I just couldn't understand what was going on. I was very naive. And so he said, well, let's not, bring this up. We won't talk about it, and we'll meet again. I said, we're done. No more meetings. We're done. So I waited for Brother Philippe to get on duty that night because I was still sleeping at the monastery, and I didn't want to cause a scene. And so, of course, this thrust me out of a very deep spiritual place. I was very open and trustworthy. My spirit was wide open. And so when this happened to me, it was more than betrayal, because I knew at this stage all of my calling would be called into question if I brought this forward, and that all those efforts I made to becoming a hermit under Canon 603, if I stay there, I'm acquiescing. If I say something, I went to Brother Philippe, and he said, don't bring this up to anyone else's attention. The Abbey will hurt you very badly. And I said, I don't take the threats. I don't understand what's going on here. So we talked till 3 a.m. And he said there was a plan to find a way to get rid of me. Here's the reason why. When I was praying at that Abbey wall for several hours a day, 8 hours, 10 hours, I was watching, I was seeing things, I was observing a lot of things. And monks were coming over the wall, crying on my shoulder. They were confessing their sins to me. They were asking me to be their spiritual director. And I was only in my early 20s. And these men are over their 60s. They were older than me. I thought that, older than I was. And so their wisdom, I thought they had all the tools that they needed for spiritual direction there. I couldn't understand why they were reaching out to me. And they were crying, and they were saying, you don't understand. There's a lot of things that go on here. Some of them were telling me they were being attacked by men who wanted, sexually, homosexual attacks. And I said, I'll work another job. You can come live with me. Just get out of here. If that's the way it is, then you need to leave, and I'll take care of you. And he said, you don't understand. I've been here my whole life. I have no way to leave here. And so then more things were happening, and I was seeing in the side chapels, women, there for monks, for boyfriend, girlfriend situations. And it was unbelievable. I walked right up to the woman, this woman came up to me, and I said, who are you here for? She's like, what do you mean? I said, you're not here for the Lord, are you? She said, how do you know? I said, and I named the priest, and she broke down. I said, this isn't right. This isn't right. It's not right for this thing to be going on. So I was becoming aware of a lot of things. And so at this stage, I didn't say anything. I just talked to Brother Philippe, told my family. I told Brother Patrick the following morning. And I was in absolute distress, tried to receive communion. I couldn't pretend everything was okay. It wasn't working out at all. So then at this stage, about a month later, I go to Petersham, Massachusetts, St. Scholastica's Priory, and I sit down and I talk to Sister Maria Malouk, who's no longer there anymore, but she was there for several years, decades. And I told her the story of what happened to me, and she said, yeah, there was someone else that the same priest, Father Joseph, did this to somebody else from a very similar convent, from the same convent, but she left later to go get married. And so I said, that's interesting. I said, what's her build? And we have similar builds, which was interesting. So then I said, well, we've got to find a way to, I said, at this stage, I have to do something. I can't just keep quiet now, because I now know there's more than one person. It wasn't just me. It wasn't just a mistake. It wasn't like, pointed just at me. This is a problem. So at this stage, I tell Myra Malouf, sister, you need to talk to Father Simon, Raphael Simon, who's passed away now. And Father Raphael brought this to the attention of Father Joseph Chukong and said, Father, there's allegations coming out that you're doing this to people, and you need to ask the abbot to take you off of ministry with women. And he said, oh, I'll try to do better next time. And I said, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. If you don't make an admission of guilt, then why would the abbot take you off duties? So then at the stage where I tell Sister Maria Malouf, I tried to keep it in-house, and it wasn't working. We had dialogues back and forth. Then it got to the stage where I told Father Dennis O'Brien, and he broke the seal of confession and told Father Isaac, without my permission, he went and told the second man in charge of the abbey, who's the prior at the time, Father Isaac Healy. Right. And he said, you're not supposed to break the seal of confession. Once you say what's going on, that is supposed to be completely private. And of course, later I learned the truth of what confession really is about. It's it's a screening mechanism to gain intelligence on people. Right. So, and I found that out really badly after. So now with Father Peter Joyce, I go to tell Father Peter what's happening. I was cleaning churches at the time. Peter was the priest in charge of St. Mary's in Southbridge, Massachusetts. He says, I'll go with you to the meeting. I'll go with you, and we could talk to Father Isaac and see if we could try to resolve this in-house. So we tried. They were trying to record me. All the mechanism changed completely. because in the dialogues with Father Isaac, one day he'd be open and say, I believe in your veracity. And then the day of the meeting, he said, this is an outrage. This accusation is an outrage. And I'm like, wait a minute. If you need proof that this is happening to others, I'm not asking for money. I'm just asking it's just a priest that's grabbing people. Can't you just stop that? You know, to me, it's simple. And it wasn't simple in their minds. They had a full agenda to try to destroy my credibility. So after the meeting, we realized we weren't getting anywhere. There's no meeting of the minds at all. And Father Peter, my friend, said, these priests are not, there's nothing holy about these people. They're bastards. That's what he said. So at this point, Father Peter, my friend, says, we got to call the DA's office. He calls the district attorney's office. Now it's the Commonwealth versus Joseph Chukong. I only met maybe an hour, 2 hours tops with Anthony Murata, who is the attorney for the Commonwealth. I was the witness for the Commonwealth. And we speed to trial. The day of the trial, none of us, Father Joseph was there, and I could see him yelling at Father Isaac, saying, I don't want to do this. And he shuffles in as if he's on drugs. And when they ask him, did you touch her breast? He says, not at all, not at all, not at all, 3 times. So I wrote an article, did you hear the cock crow? And I lost the trial because I was completely honest. I did not hide anything. They hid the fact. They weren't honest about the fact they had private investigators on me. They weren't honest about the fact that we had to change the motion change the trial date to accommodate my character witness, which was Father Peter. The morning of, the judges changed, and the DAs, wouldn't allow Father's testimony, but they allowed the Abbey to have 2 people to testify, Father Joseph, obviously, and Father Isaac. Right. And so this was a complete character assassination. So I lost the case. And at that point, I went after Attorney Anthony Murata through complaints to the Board Bar of Overseers. And it hit the newspapers. And I just wouldn't stop because I'm like, you know what? You can win in your little courts, but you're not going to win in the court of public opinion. And that's what happened. I didn't lay down and just take this. But it really disrupted my faith. I didn't leave the Catholic Church until 7 years after this thing happened to me. And it wasn't because of the sexual stuff. It was actually because of a deep study into theology. And I realized, oh my God, the Catholic Church is fake. It was not founded the way the Catholics say it was. And I came across other information from a Father Vladimir who had access when he was a Catholic priest. His name was Abbé Goutet, wrote the book, The Papacy. And he shows the whole proof in the book. He had access to the Vatican archives, and he was there for a certain project. And he didn't disclose what the project was, and he was looking up the primacy of Peter and found out he was a Roman Catholic priest. He found out the truth that Peter was not the first pope. It was nonsense. And this whole Catholic Church, it found a heresy in 1054, really. There was a split, and that was even deeper. It goes in much deeper from this point. But so going back, I go to the trial, we lose, I try at the stage to win in the court of public opinion. I'm fighting all the way, and now I'm helping other victims of clergy abuse. I'm, out there trying to, change the statute of limitations on the laws in Boston, and I'm being approached now by attorneys, and I'm being asked to help with cases behind the scenes as a consultant. And so now I'm getting more information, finding out more victims and serial offenders in the Abbey, and that my case was used as a piece, a showpiece, that anyone who tries or dares to come up against this St. Joseph's Abbey, they may not make it. There was a Robert Bechtel or something. I think he didn't make it. I think he died of bone marrow cancer. I don't know. And other people, I had a whole bunch of other people, and found out that this was not a one-time problem. There was something more to this. And it was to the degree where priests were asking for bloods, sorry to get gross, but it was semen. They were keeping up the fluids in jars. And the priest was asking for the woman's fluids, her urine, her menstrual stuff, and all this other whatever. And I was sick to my stomach. I was up for hours and hours talking to victims. And then it doesn't stay into the sexual arena. It goes into murder. And I'm not saying that, I'm just saying in the big picture, as far as the Catholic Church on a wider scale, I joined Survivors Network for Those Abused by Priests and found out this never stays at the sexual abuse arena. It goes into the other realm. And then it even goes into the satanic from that point. Because again, I was very naive, so I couldn't understand. I couldn't get the big picture. But over the years, I did get the picture. So at this stage, I get burnt out and I just run to Texas. I go and I move to Texas and I start to study private law remedies. And in the course of doing that, I really studied intensely to the degree where the FBI actually sat down, wanted to meet with me in 2012 of April. We sat down. I didn't know what they wanted. I was really confused because they asked me questions like, do you believe the Pope owns us all through the collateralization of our birth certificates? And I'm like, I'm not answering that. I didn't answer it. I just changed the subject. And so, because I honestly didn't know what that was all about. And I started to have strange symptoms. So now when I moved to Texas in 2009, and I'm studying and I'm minding my own business, I'm noticing on my website that St. Joseph's Abbey is looking me up. They're downloading things. They're still interested in me. And I'm thinking, well, I'm supposed to be gone, out of sight, out of mind. Why would anyone care about me? So I kept notes because, again, I couldn't put the picture together, so I didn't understand things. So I just keep journals and keep notes and screenshots of everything that was going on. Right. And so at the point where in 2011 in July, I ended up, prior to that, having strange symptoms to the degree where I had vertigo and had to go to the emergency room, and it didn't make sense because I took very good care of my body, at least the way I knew how. So the doctor agreed that, you know what, I've already had polyp surgery before to remove the polyp in my right nostril. So go in, take it out the sinus. And I did that in 2009 prior to going to Texas. I believe it was in that year. So I was like, well, I guess it must have grown back and we need to do another, polypectomy. And I said, well, great, let's do it. And remove some of the bone because it was hard for me to breathe. So I now am preparing to go in for surgery. And this is 2011, July, and I got the willies. I got really creeped out and I'm like, what's your problem? I was talking to myself, what's your problem? Come on, you're just going to go in for surgery. You've been to surgery before. So I called up a friend, and he has a DOD. He's got clearances and things. I have the pictures with him and Oliver North. I mean, he's proficient in what he does. And I said, listen, this could be just me, having a feeling, but I don't feel comfortable about going through the surgery yet. I need to get it done, and I don't have any logical reason why I shouldn't move forward. Because I always try to follow logic first. Back then I did. So I spoke with the security man, my friend, and he said, of course, I'd be happy to do that for you. And so I went in for the surgery, and the anesthesiologist came up to me. I never told him that I hired somebody. He says, I will do everything I can to get your security to be present in the operation room. I was like, okay. I had no idea. I couldn't understand what's going on. How did he know that? So, and the doctor, when he came up to, and we were talking before the surgery, his hands were shaking, and I grabbed his hands and I said, you've done many of these before. You're going to be just fine. And I was trying to comfort him because nothing made sense. It didn't make sense. So I finished the surgery. I come out, and as I'm coming out of the surgery, coming into, off the anesthesia, I could feel strange open areas in this arena and around my ears. And it was just a strange sensation. And I didn't have that after the first surgery. So I was like, well, whatever that is, who knows? I'm alive and I'm happy. So I get wheeled out into the foyer area, and the anesthesiologist comes back, looks at me, puts his arms like this and shakes his head like this. And I'm like, what's your problem? I'm alive. I'm like, everything's fine. Well, I get home, and of course, my guard was gone. When I came out of anesthesia, I asked my other friend who was there, Mark, I said, where did he go? He said, oh, he had to pick up his daughter. I said, well, it all turned out well. So I tried to go pay him, and he refused payment. And so then at this stage, I get home, and for the 5 weeks after this surgery, I was scratching and itching, and like it looked like the hives, like tremendous. I had pictures of it, and it raised, it was very uncomfortable. So I complained, and I went back to the hospital and got my records and so forth. And I just basically said, whatever's going on, you guys need to clean the sheets better. I think you guys have bed bugs here. And I just told them, I said, and I went to the doctor. I said, give me some creams and let's fix this. And so none of the creams would work. And I kept pictures and I kept a journal because nothing was coming together. I couldn't put the picture together 100%. More time had to pass by. So now I go and I take the document out of Sue Chen's, hands. His secretary gives it to me. First, she tried not to give me the whole document, the whole file, because normally after every visit I make with the doctor, I always ask for files. She tried to hide 2 pages. And I said, whoa, what's going on? What's that page? And she's like, oh, that's nothing. I said, listen, all my stuff is just going to go in a box anyway. Just go ahead, make me a copy of it. And it's just going to go in a box. Just, go ahead. She's like, I'm sorry about that. And she went to the copy machine and made me the copy of the pages. I went down to the parking lot, opened it up, looked at it. It was the pathology report, and it says unknown doctor in upper lowercase. And my primary care is all caps, and then the doctor who did the surgery is upper lowercase. So I'm like, unknown doctor. So the next time I went back to the doctor to remove the packing from my nose, I just said, I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just asking a question. Do you know who this unknown doctor would be? And he said, you need to talk to Dr. Wang or whatever. I said, okay. I said, but have you ever seen this before? He said, no, not in all my years. And I've done these kinds of surgeries for many, many years. I said, all right, well, thank you for your help. So I just kept it in the file. And I said, this is really, really odd, unknown doctor, but I'm just going to keep it in the file. So a year and a half goes by after the surgery, give or take. Now it's like December of 2012. My health got worse and worse and worse. And I could feel heat on me when I was sleeping. And I'm like, people might describe this as like menopause, but I'm like, I know I'm not the age of menopause. So what's going on? And so this gets interesting. This is where I love how God does what he does to prepare us. So I'm now trying to put the puzzle piece together. What's happening to me? Why is my health declining? So I go into Google search and I put in dizziness, vertigo, a whole bunch of symptoms, and it comes up with microwave exposure. Now, if anyone wants to see this, they can get the visual part of my story. I tell it, and it's on my website, clergyvictim.com. And you just click on the 32-minute video, Jesus Defeats Nanotechnology Weapons, because that's where we're headed in this conversation.
Right.
So, but I do have some visual aids to share, some poignant facts. But basically, at this point, I'm just trying to find out. So I'm like, well, I don't use a microwave. I don't understand why I have microwave exposure symptoms, but let me just see if I have something in my file. So back in 2006, I was living in Massachusetts at the time. This was, and I get a phone call, and I have like maybe 5 priests from Boston, and I'm feeding them a beautiful steak dinner. And I get this phone call from my twin sister, and she says, you need to get your ass here now. I'm like, Christy, what's wrong? I'm like, I have people here. I have guests. And she's like, you need to get here now. And she hangs up the phone. I'm like, sorry, guys. Just leave the key under the mat when you're done. I have to go and tend to my sister. She's having some kind of an emergency.
Okay, is this your, just because you use the word sister, is this your literal sister?
Yes,
your family, your sister.
My blood relative. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I go to Christy's house, and she's got a house with levels, and I'm now going to the first level, which is kind of like a basement level. And I go in, she grabs me. There's no lights on, pulls me in. And I'm like, what the heck's wrong with you? You know, she says, I have to tell you something, and this is really scary, and I don't know what to do, and you're the only one I think who can help. I'm like, are you all right? You know? Hold on just a second. My alarm is going off. I had the wrong time zone, so okay, let me shut that off. So my sister.
Okay. So now I'm going to bring you back on because, I was going to talk to the audience if necessary, while the break was going on. Okay. So go ahead, continue.
Thank you. So my sister says, our uncle, whom we haven't seen, his name is Kevin Burnor. He just showed up here today. And at the airport, and he was distressed, and he's saying helicopters are following him, and he's some kind of a target, and he's got microchips in his head, and I think he's nuts, and we need to take him to a hospital. I said, whoa, hold up. I said, number one, if there is something like that going on, and we go ahead and take him to the VA's hospital, because he's a vet, I says, we're going to lose Uncle. I don't know. I said, we have to first find out what's true. And if he's lying to us or if he's running from doing a crime, then we're going to find out about it. And, I'm going to take him to the police myself. But if he's not, and he's really genuinely crying out for help, and he's coming here after 20 years of us not seeing him, we need to have a fair disposition toward him and not just throw him to the wolves. We need to do some due process here. So, I ended up going to the congressman, I think his name is McGovern, and we opened a file there, and I took 6 weeks of serious time and energy. I spoke with the head of Veterans Affairs in Puerto Rico. He gave me power of attorney and HIPAA releases and all that so I could talk to the Amen clinic that actually showed the scans of my uncle. And after the 6 weeks, it was really determined he was chipped. And
wait. Slow down. It was determined he was what?
He was chipped against his will.
Okay, you're breaking up. Those words were, we couldn't understand them. He was what?
Chipped. Chipped.
Chipped? What does that mean?
Chipped. A microchip.
Oh, chipped. Hello?
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I'm putting this back on. Is that better?
You sound better, yes. Your video is kind of fuzzy, but we can live with that. Okay, so you found out he was actually chipped. Okay, now I understand the word. Go ahead.
Yes, the Veterans Affairs in Puerto Rico had his scans and said, your uncle's not crazy. This is happening to him and many other vets. So at this stage, here I am in 2012. Of course, we came up with the agreement that, Uncle, there's nothing more we can do for you. You need to get in touch with others who've been through this experience. I got him in touch with James Walbert, and who headed TI support back then. And so I said, you need to leave the country. There's no remedy. At this point, there's no remedy. So he did. He left the country for 10 years until Donald Trump came into office, okay? Now, what's interesting is here I am in 2012 of December, and I go and I grab my uncle's file, and I look through the file, and I say, okay, there's Melinda Kidder of Columbia Investigations doing the TSCM, Technical Surveillance Countermeasure tests, basically testing if there's some sort of signal. Out of James Walbert, I had Dr. Hildegard Staniger, toxicologist. I had Dr. John Hall's documents. So I'm like, I think the first place to start is to call James and see if there's something happening to me. So I called him up on Skype, and he said, you need to go get a JM20 Pro. It's an RF meter. And he said, call me back. So I ordered the thing on eBay, and I called James back, and he says, he taught me how to use the equipment and to calibrate it, make sure it was still working. It's working properly. And he said, you have the signal, it's in your ears and around your waist area. And he said, something's happening to you. You have something in there that's transmitting a signal. So I said, this is, I don't know, but I'm going to go professional because this machine could be broken. I bought it from eBay. So I call Columbia Investigations and I say, hi, Melinda, this is Keri, and I'm going to be in your area for a special. I was involved in helping a client, just so happened to be in Missouri. I said, after court, when I'm done with them, I'd like to come over and see you and just have you rule it out that maybe I don't have something going on. Maybe it's something neurological. She says, sure. So I prepaid, sent everything in advance. On the way to Melinda Kidder, to her her investigative, location, I see a white man to the right of me, and my client is sitting in the right of me, to the right of me. And I say, look at that. I said, do you see the plates on that? There were special plates. And I said, are we in a mountainous region? Because it was dark. He said, absolutely not. I said, something's going on. At this point, I didn't know what was going on, but it was very uncomfortable. At this point, I find out later that that's the point at which they activated the materials in my body. See, during the surgery, what happened was there was a scar along my jawline, and Melinda found it under blue light. She could see that, and she marked that in her report. And she also found microtesla signals, 0.02. That's as if I'm a walking, talking cell phone.
Wow. And
I negated it. I said, wait a minute, go do it to the other girl over there, because there was another detective there, or investigator. And I said, go test her. I could see as clear as day that when she was getting closer to her, or I said, put it on you, nothing was happening to the device. But when she was coming closer to me, the numbers were going up on the Seiko, which is an RF reader. She was using really nice equipment for this. So she said, yeah, you have signals coming out. And she put a beautiful report together. And they were coming from the mastoid air cell region, which is this part of the head, and some areas within my abdomen and other locations, along the rest of my body. So I said, I have a question. Do you know of anybody who had this problem, returned back to you, and then they were cleansed? They didn't have the signal any longer. She said, never. In all the years I've been doing this, I've never had one survivor return to me with a clear findings. I says, I'm coming back in 6 months. I'm going to get this out of my body. Jesus has healed me of many, many situations, really bad stuff. He's going to heal me of this. I said, so she gave me the report, or she said, I have to write the report for you. And I had to fly from Missouri to California, to Northern California, and I did my class. I warned everybody. I said, I'm only going to teach this class. I was teaching lawful remedies. And I said, but you're not allowed to ask questions because I could be compromised and I don't want to injure your case or cause you injury. So I said, I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to teach the class and I'm leaving, but none of you are allowed to talk. Do you agree? We agreed without saying it. And so then I finished the class, and now I'm getting on the plane. Now, when I went from Missouri to San Diego, I could feel very incredible pain in my ears. And it was excruciating. And it was only when the plane actually was descending. When I was ascending, I wasn't in pain like that. It was just strange pressure. And I've flown many times, like 300 or 400 times at the time, because I was traveling. I traveled more by plane than I did by car at the time. So I was like, okay, well, maybe that's just a sinus infection. Get over it. So I started to take echinacea and other herbs. Now I'm in San Diego. I'm in Sacramento area. And now I'm going to fly from Sacramento back to Texas, where I was at the time. But we had to stop first in San Diego. When we descended to collect more people in the plane, it was Southwest, there was pink ooze coming down from my ears, pink.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh my God. And I was in so much pain, and I was crying, and I'm holding my ears. I deplane, when some people were getting off, I went off with them and I went straight to the desk. I said, get me my bags. I cannot take the other leg back to Texas. And they said, are you okay? Do you want us to get an ambulance? I said, no, I'm fine. Everything's fine. I said, I just need my bags. I just need my bags. So they gave me my bags. They sat outside, and I'm sitting there with my address book. And I'm like, who do I know? Who do I know in California? I was like, oh, my friend Mark lives here. So I said, hey, Mark, I need your help. I'm here. He says, I'm on my way. Here's the cool part. I get into a hotel next to my friend Mark. His house is here, and I'm in a hotel like across the street. Perfect. And I take 3 days to sleep because I was in incredible pain, indescribable. And then I emailed Melinda Kidder, and I said, well, do you have the report done? She says, I'll get it for you right away. She sent me the report, and it says at the bottom of the report that I need to talk to Dr. Hildegard Staninger, or in the email, she said, you need to talk to Dr. Hildegard. And I was like, who's that? I didn't know if it was a guy or a girl. And here I am, right in the heart of Los Angeles. And Dr. Hildegard's office is right there in Los Angeles. So I was like, wow, this is totally a God thing. Because if I went back to Texas, I'd have to get back on a plane and go, to Los Angeles. But I was right there. So I called her. And she said, we have a protocol. I need some documents. I have to have, a doctor you have to be recommended. And I said, that's not a problem. So to protect my doctor, I already did hair samples to find out for heavy metals. And I also did urine analysis, I believe, at the time. And so I collected those. And I said, here's how we're going to fill out the top sheet. Just say it's a toxicological heavy metal problem. I said, don't mention chips, don't mention signals. I had to protect my doctor. So I finally get in to see Dr. Staninger, and we sit down. She interviews me, and she says, yes, you do have, because she verified that there were signals continuing to come out of my body. And she said, yeah, the Jesuits did this to you in the Vatican. I said, why? Why would? And she has a direct correspondence with Carol Wojtyla, Pope John Paul II, because she helped him with his prosthetic problem. So I'm like, she's a Catholic. She's, she may not be practicing, but it didn't matter. She was a Catholic. So I'm like, why would this Catholic woman tell me that the Catholic Church is doing this to me? And so I said, I had suspicions about this. And so I told her, I said, well, here's my story. And I told her about the priest and how the case basically was, I ended up proving that the case was completely influenced by Vatican politics right there in Massachusetts. And I had other cases connected because I was involved, like I said, in a lot of the sex abuse scandals from behind the scenes. And I was investigating. I was there with binoculars taking pictures of priests when they would lie and say, under oath, they would say they're not well and they can't walk, and yet we catch them without a cane. So it's like so at this stage, when I'm in Dr. Staninger's office, she says, well, this technology. She said, how is this happening? She said, this is nanotechnology. I said, what is that? I had no idea what that was. She's trying to explain it. And I said, listen, all of that is way over my head. I said, I pulled out my debit card. I said, can we fix this? She said, yes, but you have to follow all the protocols. I said, well, how long will that take? She said, 3 to 6 months. I said, well, I'm not coming back here until these signals are gone. I said, so I walked out of there with 4 briefcases full of herbs and protocols and other little things that she had. So there I was now. I'm taking 75 pills a day, and I'm doing everything in my power, and I'm starting to research nanotechnology and what is this? And I got the book, Nanotechnology for Dummies, and tried to understand it. And so at this point, I literally tell my friends, leave me alone for 3 months. I'm going to stay here. I built a Faraday cage. I bought the equipment that was used on me with Melinda so I could monitor my progress. I wasn't there to scan other people. Not interested in that because I'm not licensed or certified for all that. But I bought the equipment to see if I could build like a cage or a cave. So I did. And this is when, again, now this was the 5 weeks that within the 5 weeks then when I was first activated. Now, they wouldn't allow me to sleep. My skin was jumping. I take video. I had to sleep in leather. I tried to figure out how do I block these signals. And they literally wouldn't let me sleep for like over 3.5 to 5 weeks or whatever it was. And I finally figured out the combination of things to be able to get enough sleep. So if I could just sleep a little, I could start to think and figure out a way to get out of the situation. So now I built the cave and it worked. I actually went in with my equipment and sure enough, it was no longer in the red. It was all in the green, which was perfect. And so I did my mindset work. I listened a lot to the Your Wish is Your Command series. It's for more business stuff with Kevin Trudeau, but I said, it doesn't matter. He's doing it for business. I'm doing it for my goals, for my health. So then I end up, praise God, I was monitoring my progress and now I have no more signals. So I'm like, okay, it's time to go back to Melinda and it's time to go back to Dr. Staninger. And we did tests. Now I was pulling samples, like I was in the saunas and taking samples that were, because when my body was cleaning itself of the nanotechnology, you know what that is. It was basically, in my case, it's military grade, innovative. I was hit 9 times with this technology from 2011 until Trump took office. That's when the attacks stopped, dead in their tracks. But I was on the run for 5.5 years. So using different aliases, I mean, I literally spent over $400,000 just to figure out how do I fix this? Because every kind of nano that they hit me with was designer, innovative. Some of it was in the terahertz range, which is really painful. Navy grade, it was from the Navy. All of this is all evidence, and frankly, just for the sake of the camera, just to show you, this was my case, and here's all the evidence of the files. That's only the first nano attack, just the first, maybe first or second or something nano attacks. This is the record I gave to the attorneys, okay? And there was evidence. I had a Raman spectroscopy, FTIR. And that test was alone $14,000. And I had photomicrographs. I had all of this evidence. And so now I'm cleansed. I'm celebrating. I'm happy. I go back. I get the test done with Melinda. She says, you know what? There's no signals coming out of your body. And I said, praise God, we did it. Then I went to Hildegard Staninger. I went maybe a couple months after that. And she said, wow, you have a total turnaround in results. And I did the blood tests all over again. I mean, this was like 150 vials, 75 vials in one sitting. I accused Hildy. I'm like, you're the worst vampire. You're worse than the Abbey and in the Vatican. So, we have this joke amongst ourselves. So now I'm cleansed and I'm rejoicing, and now I can see that my ideas were working because they started to get the gang stalkers back on their duty to follow me, and I had them on my cameras. I had them all there. I'm like, this is a good sign, because if they're not monitoring me from within my body, they're monitoring me from without, which means this is my time to find a way to escape. So I'm like, okay, I packed all my stuff. And I got another alias and found other ways to have that taken care of. I figured it out and paid cash for the first, 6 months or something, and stayed in this place. And I was there for maybe 1.5 years, and I was happy because no more nano. I was happy. I was feeling good. I was still working under aliases, doing consulting work. And my friend, Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, her husband passed away. Dr. Sherry's the one that's known for fighting the vaccine situation. And she asked me, are you going to come to Cabo San Lucas this year? Because I would go there every year with her. And I'm like, of course I'm going to go. But I wasn't thinking, because all this time I was hiding. And now when I got on the plane to go to Cabo San Lucas, I had an alias when I was in Mexico, but I didn't have an alias to cross over. So I was thinking, well, whoever this is, I can't imagine they would have the vast resources to follow me out of the country. I was so naive. And all that work. Goodness. So I go to Cabo San Lucas. I'm enjoying this trip immensely. And I get home and I'm like, I feel sick. And I'm like, no. And the sounds were starting to come back and the high pitched and all those things were happening. I'm like, this isn't good. So I did the tests with Dr. Hildy and she said, yeah, they gave you tularemia, which is rabbit's fever, which is a biohazard, bioweapon. And it was still integrated through the nanos at the nano scale. So now they're using all this time chemical, biological, radiological weapons against me. Nuclear, these are nuclear too. They're actually classified as a weapon of mass destruction. That's what nanotech weapons are. The nanotech that's in my body, that was in my body, was military grade. That was meant, and I'm going to read some stuff out of the reports, but I'm just giving you the big picture. So then when I read from the report, it's all going to start to make sense. But basically, the military grade nanotech is not the same nanotech that they're putting in Coca-Cola or Danone or other products, or wine or beer for that matter, because they're using these things for longer shelf life, for certain taste purposes. There's a lot of reasons they're doing it. I don't think everyone's doing this on purpose, but the higher ups are, they're doing it. That's food grade nanotech. And that still is harmful and it's toxic.
Wow.
But the stuff that was put in me, I'm actually going to start reading from these reports to show you the differentiation between what the nature of it was. So the purpose of the first attack of Nano was very specific. They actually, the first round of it, which I showed you the big book, the purposes for that, because it took me 1.5 years to figure out what was wrong. So unfortunately, it did create networks within my body. And here's from the report going into it's 5/30/2013, Advanced Material Analysis Report for Origin of Specimen, Chemical Analysis of Mesogenic Biosensory Advanced Materials by Dr. Hildegard Staniger. And she likes to just copyright and trademark her stuff to keep everything clean. It says here in the conclusional summary, so this was their reason and the purpose they were doing this to me. The majority of high-impact technologies that utilize brain-computer interfaces as a neuronet, neurotree network, brain chip, or biosensor would be for the following purposes: control and monitoring of the brain and bodily functions, control and monitoring of the behavior of the individual, sending and receiving verbal commands, stimulation of the bioelectrical transmission within the neuron trees of the nerves, may be utilized as a listening device for remote sensing and monitoring, may be used as a transmitter for listening in on conversations. If there's a digital computer component to the device, it may be used to capture visual transmissions as a walking, talking monitoring system, a high-tech extrinsic spying system, especially for military industrial espionage. So that's just the first round of Nano. Now we go into a situation where my car was broken into. And this is a sample of it. I'm going to see if I could try to put this into the camera. If not, it's okay. You can definitely get it on the video. Jesus Defeats Nanotechnology. It's on YouTube in real.video. But here's what happened. My garage door was left open. I had a guest over who needed to access to the garage, and I forgot to close the door. So a neighbor ends up coming and says, listen, your garage door is open. I said, well, thank you so much. I will take care of that. And I go in and I see that my car was broken into, and the valuables were left in there, but the 2 big bags of quarters were taken. And so I'm praying, and I get this sense that, okay, I need to shut off all the lights, go get a stink finder, a pet stink finder, the blue light. And I shut off all the lights, And something just told me, go and look at the carpet. So I looked at the carpet, and there's a fluorescent green dye. You probably don't have the best way to see it, but it's there. So this is in the dark. I took this picture in the dark, and this was, I cut the carpet, and I sent it to the lab, and here's the findings. 6/19/2015, report on exposure to designer innovative nanotechnology, assessment area, vehicle and living facility, Hildegard Stanninger, etc. It says, on or about February 26, 2015, our client, Ms. Keri Burnor, had a break-in to their vehicle, which was reported to private investigators for safety concerns, etc. Then it goes on, the red container, which contained a carpet material from the suspect vehicle, was positive for nanowires. The client did have a patch test analysis and a hair analysis. And she says further, the analysis revealed specific materials that would induce colon cancer, breast cancer, and leukemia. And she gets into a lot of technical stuff here, so I'm going to pass by that. Each used as a specific tag to induce and or monitor cancer mechanisms development. The analysis results indicate that the materials utilized were of a specific innovative nanotechnology delivery system with a specific intent, such as to give our client cancer at an accelerated rate of time. Wow. So this is serious stuff. And it happened 9 times. So this is by Jesus only, by God only am I here. So now, the last part I wanted to bring in as far as a report that Dr. Hildy wrote, and again, I'm only sharing this to let you know there's a differentiation between weaponized nano and the stuff that's in the food, but there's a remedy for both, okay? There's a remedy for both. I don't say these things to get people to have them nervous. But this is a continuation. This is from the affidavit from Dr. Hildegard Stanninger in July of 2015. This is the reason why. This is the clearest documentation that addresses why I was targeted for this situation. Keri Burnor was perfectly clear of this technology, and since recent tests of porphyrins, other tests pending as of the date of this affidavit, has returned to show a presence of specific nanotechnology composed of hexagonal carboxyls that are specifically used to make porphyrin nanotubes used in a hexagonal waveguides, as reported in phase 1. And she gets into phase 1, etc. Special request analysis dated June 6, 2015 were reintroduced back into her system. That she never gave permission for this, that the use of it was for torture, terrorism, and hate crimes reasons against her, due to Keri Burnor's unswerving faith in Christ, this is important, without adherence to the Catholic faith tenets, recent conversion 2008 to Orthodoxy, a heretical act as defined by Roman Catholic dogmas, and a means of retaliation by those who she witnessed against in a criminal trial in 2003 against the priests of the Cistercian order and the Catholic Church. The earmarks of Jesuit attack are also seen in that Fordham University pioneered the use of nanotechnology and is one of the leading authorities on the subject. That according to Keri Burnor's testimony, transcripts, trial case number, etc., Commonwealth versus Joseph Chukong, that both priests who testified against her were either graduates, affiliates, or professors at Fordham University. Appian heard Keri Burnor mentioning her concern that this St. Joseph's Abbey in Spencer, Massachusetts was involved, and that the same abbey had a founder by the name, you would know this one, of J. Peter Grace, who is also known as one of the leaders involved in Project Paperclip, an operation that furnished a way to assist German doctors of the Third Reich evade the Nuremberg trial, while also assisting with protecting those involved in mind control experiments. German scientists in 1934 developed nanotechnology as microbeads and other related technologies as stated in Nanotechnology, A Gentle Introduction to the Next Big Idea by Mark Ratner and David Ratner, copyright 2003. Appian believes Keri Burnor to be of sound mind and that her concerns are legitimate. Appian has personally seen the Department of Homeland Security, we call it Romeland Security, monitor meetings outside of the building where Keri Burnor was present with Appian on Saturday, December 7, 2013. All of these documents can be accessed on my website, clergyvictim.com. Just go down to the link where it says nanotechnology used in efforts to silence informant. Click onto that and then go back you go on the page and you'll have access to these reports too. So now I want to get a little bit into to tie the theme together, because we opened up this conversation about the dogmas. No salvation outside the Catholic Church from the year 1215 to 1441. This is important because a lot of people think, well, those are antiquated beliefs and Roman Catholics of our day don't believe in that. Not at all. They still do believe in it. In an encyclical by Cardinal Ratzinger in the late 1990s, he was participating in writing this thing. There's an encyclical called Dominus Jesus, or Lord Jesus. And in this encyclical, he reasserts the dogmas of no salvation outside the Catholic Church. It's also called Extra Ecclesiam Nulla Salus. Why is this important? Here's the reason why. This is just unbelievable, frankly. I couldn't believe it. I joined the Roman Catholic Church, fell in love with Jesus, and I find out I'm not really, God knows. But St. Thomas Aquinas, extermination of heretics. Here we go. I answer that. With regard to heretics, 2 points must be observed. This is from his writings in the Summa Theologica. One on their own side, the other on the side of the church. On their own side, there is the sin whereby they deserve not only to be separated from the church by excommunication, but also to be severed from the world by death. So then, how does this all tie in? I end up receiving an email threatening me in December, I think it was, of 2016, right before Trump took office. Maybe it was even November. I'm kind of bad with dates. But I'm digging for it here because this is important to know. People think, well, it's, maybe just only the Muslims that might have a more, staunch belief in this sort of thing. No, there are Catholics that still do uphold these teachings. So basically, there was an email that came in and it said, you have 7 days to die. So I sent the email, and it was like politically incorrect gaming was at the top of it, and it was sent from me to me. But I know I didn't send this to myself, so it made it look like I sent it to myself. Well, I know I didn't do that. So I sent it to 2 private investigators, and I said, "Is this to be taken seriously, or would you consider this a threat?" And she said, "Absolutely." She said, "Here's the findings." I'll just try to show it into the picture because this ties into the theme of being a heretic. So politically incorrect gaming. This document is also in the same tab, on clergyvictim.com. Right. And it basically says 7 days to die right there. So guess what Melinda finds? She goes in, researches it, and she finds the origin of the email came from the DoD Network Information Center in Miami. I'm like, okay, then I am going to have to probably pack up and leave again. There's a lot of that was happening throughout the years. So then, here's the clincher to that email. In the email, it went to 2 locations. It went to the DoD Information Network Center, and it also went to someplace 20 minutes away from me, from my actual location. And in the document, it's at the heading, the subject line, it says, and I'm going to have to try to cover my email so I don't get too many emails here, but it says FAERD, okay? So I said, Melinda, what does that mean? She says, I looked it up, and FAERD, Baird, means heretic. And I said, that's too much. That's just crazy. So there is a belief, and it still is real, and they hold to it. So these, in my opinion, this is all tied into the Jesuit oath. The Jesuits have it's entered into the congressional record. You can find it. It's also in the book Vatican Assassins. So now I want to tie some more themes of this together. St. Joseph's Abbey, in their church, they have an altar in the front of it, and it's a big black, altar, and it has the names inscribed on the side of their donors, the ones who founded the abbey, and it is J. Peter Grace. and you can go to my website it says, who is J. Peter Grace? And you're going to find out that he was involved in, MK Ultra, MK, Delta, which is chemical programs tied into, mind control experiments and all this other stuff. He was mainly known for his business capabilities, but he and his wife are both buried up at St. Joseph's Abbey. Now, this is powerful. This book here is the Vatican Assassins book. And I was searching for the truth. Back in 2007, I was astounded to find out that the Roman Church was involved in genocide. Alcorn versus Vatican Bank was a big wake-up call. So I called the attorney, Levy, and said, is this real, or am I looking at somebody's fake nonsense on the internet? Because I saw in the pictures Roman Catholic priests sawing off the heads with saws, the Orthodox priests. This is where I knew there was a difference between Orthodoxy and Romanism. Rome's plan is the subjugation of all nations so that they cannot rise up against the Vatican. So basically, where does this all fit in with J. Peter Grace? This is my friend's book, Vatican Assassins. This thing is huge. So you might want to get the digital version because this will give you big biceps.
Yes.
But in this book, here's a picture of J. Peter Grace involved in Francis Cardinal Spellman's network of assassins, 1963, for killing JFK. And then you look into the history, and you'd also be able to find that the Jesuits also are believed to have killed Abraham Lincoln, and that the Vatican did not have diplomatic relations with the United States until Reagan took office. So why is it that we have Samuel Moore saying we're not having diplomatic relations, we're not going to, recognize this country, we're not recognizing them? And now the wisdom has changed, and people are not waking up to the fact that there really is a big conspiracy going on here. And it's not just a conspiracy; it's conspiracy under Title 18. It's not a theory; it's fact. So now you go in further to studying more about J. Peter Grace, and the bottom line is it's just one big. Basically, the monasteries, in my opinion, need to be looked into. Where they situated, were they created for a specific strategic purpose? Because we have Henry Luce also donating land to Mepkin Abbey. I visited there, and I'm not saying every monk is a bad person, but when you look deeper into the history, they're basically these monasteries, very well could be, and I believe they are, fronts for the CIA, which is controlled by the Jesuits.
Right.
So this is the reason why I feel and believe that they tried to make me look crazy, but I didn't. There was a certain decorum I held for many years, and that was hiding and writing in a journal to really understand what was going on, because I knew that no one would ever believe me until I had all my ducks in a row. But they tried to kill me so many times. Here's another interesting connection. When you look into, I was seeing Rockefeller Group, Carlyle Group, looking on my website. I mean, I was astounded. And I started to receive text messages from the Department of Defense. I have the text messages here saying, stop being a shit disturber. The Jesuits will give you $100 million if you just shut your mouth.
Wow.
And he tried to involve me in some operation. And he said, this whole thing with you being chipped with Nano is nonsense. And I went against my better judgment and gave him a real sample. And he said, the whole thing is entirely different. He said, he's going to look under the scope in the morning, and then he finds out, what the hell is this? He says, gallium base with minor amounts of indium and neodymium, but except for gallium, but guessing by shape. And he said, how the heck, what's going on? So he tried to get me involved in an operation connected to Homeland Security, okay? And I said no. And he was infuriated and hung up the phone. Supposed to be a believer in Christ, allegedly. Well, interestingly enough, he comes back. I sent the doctor sent him the chain of custody and everything. So I had a double witness that, because the intelligence community was saying Hildy's a nut job. She doesn't have accurate testing. And I'm thinking, no, this is all acceptable in accordance with the evidence rules in court. You know, depending on what state you're in, you have to perfect it, of course. So, you know, then we get into stranger questions like, oh, well, after you posted your Burnor's criminal complaint on the website, I am no longer allowed to talk to you. I have to report to what you guys call Area 51. That's another guy. That was somebody else. That's not even these people don't know each other. This was a former Secret Service agent. Then I get another text message about, do you know anything about the Mount Graham and the telescopes in Mount Graham? And I said, no, not at all. You know, so all of this I can tell you is there is some strange things, because the J. Peter Grace and the Rockefellers are definitely connected, and that would be something very interesting to look into. And I don't know why people were asking me about, you know, Project Lucifer. I don't know why they would ask me about that, but that is something interesting, because they were sniffing around for that kind of information. Now, the next thing I'd like to do is go through a little bit. I know you've had a guy on your show too. His name is Leo Zagami. And it was Leo, thanks to Leo, because he called me asking for my help to translate something into Latin for him regarding a project for the lodge, for people who wanted to denounce Satan and come back to truth and light in Christ. So I said, I'd be more than happy to help you with that project. Well, in exchange for that, he was the one who told me that this country was taken over by the Jesuits. And then later I found out through research in Kay Griggs that Leo was not wrong. You know, that's absolutely very astute research that he did, and a composition of experiences that he put together. So now I want to get into the psychological side of this, because I ended up getting a psychological evaluation, because I felt at some point I would be threatened, and I was basically taken threat. I was threatened, and they called me, and someone in the intelligence community, and this was bad. This was really bad. And I don't think I've ever even said this on anything else before, but I'm going to tell you, this person threatened me, and it was face to face, and said, if you don't come down here and report, you know, and give us the documents you have, it's likely you're carrying classified materials. And I said, you know, okay. I said, I don't like threats, but what can we do about this? I want to protect, you know, our country here. You know, I want to do what's right. He said, well, so basically the long and short of that story is they basically made an offer to me. You either join us and, you know, we will give you access to a lot of funds. You'll have access to cars, helicopters, whatever you want. But you're going to have to basically be trained by us. And I said, trained in what way? You know, I said, I read a lot, you know, but what would you want me to do? He says, well, that can't be disclosed to you right now. But the bottom line is you are an asset, and you would be a great asset. And I said, well, if it's to help our country, I'm on my way. I'm going to do what I can. And I gave him the documents. And then when I said, well, I'd like the documents back. Well, no, we need to comb over those again. We have to make sure that it's perfectly clean before I can give them back to you. And he basically said, if you don't follow with what we're asking, we're going to put you in a loony bin, or we're going to set you up for a crime, you know, to frame you for a crime. I said, that's ludicrous. He says, no, it's not. We can make documents to make it look real. I said, well, I don't like the threats. I said, but if it's for the good of our country, whatever you want me to do. I mean, if I have documents that could cause somebody problems, I'm not trying to do any of that. So I'm just letting you know, I had face to face with these people. And yes,
that is extraordinary. That's just unbelievable. Okay, so I mean, thank you. I mean, your testimony is really astounding, I have to say, and I have every respect for you. Like I said, I mean, an accomplished whistleblower, like, it doesn't even begin to explain how amazing, your testimony is. And I'm wondering, so how did you leave it with these people? And you gave them your documents. Did you keep copies, I hope? And
I had copies everywhere. Oh, yes. Okay. I had copies everywhere. Yeah.
All right. So, you're really on it. I mean, I don't understand this. Why aren't you, like, incredibly famous at this point? I mean, because you're really extraordinary, I have to say. You with all the victims out there, you're not the only victim, but with all the victims out there, you're one of the most researched, most, clear cut stories that is really implicating so many levels of the deep state and the Vatican and the CIA and the Jesuits. I mean, and just going all, and with the Peter Grace and Rothschild link-ups. This is really extraordinary. So they tried to bring you on board, but you never really knew what they were going to try to train you to do.
All right. In all honesty, later I found out what they wanted, and it was really not good. I mean, I can't believe I'm going to tell you this. This person was all about how on the destruction of the soul and how to do it. And they said, I'm going to give you information. It is top secret, and you're in agreement that if I tell you this, that we are charged with the liberty to be able to kill you if you disclose this. And I said, listen, we didn't have a signed agreement yet. I said, but if my God agrees that if I did something that was dishonorable and God agrees that you could kill me, then you have to go through him first. You're more than welcome. But I said, I don't need threats. I want to work with you and not have a power differential. If we could work towards a goal to do something that's good, I said, I have visions and belief that maybe we could do counterterrorism class with the FBI and teach them how to do intakes. Because I'm opening services to people through Christ the Law Hermitages. It's called the Christ the Law Hermitages Targeted to Free program. And we're trying to get that up and running, and I need to train other people on how to be confident to take that information, because when I was going through this, I had nowhere to go. I had no other person that went through the experience, came out on the other side. There was one person that did. I asked Dr. Hildy, do you know of anyone that went through this? She said, one person I do know, but they took $100 million and they have to abide by an agreement. And I was like, well, I respect that. But, and then she offered the same attorney to me, which, interestingly enough, I'm not saying this man is evil, but I'm just finding that it's strange to me. She gives me Daniel P. Sheehan, who was the general counsel to the Jesuits. Right. He was a Jesuit.
Exactly. Yeah. Right.
So I said, Hildy, I appreciate you offering this to me, but I can't do this because it's a conflict of interest. How do I know he's not going to take this data that I show him, report back to somebody, even if he does it inadvertently, who knows? And then they take the information and perfect the technology so we have a harder time for other people to get through it.
Right.
So,
exactly.
Yeah, this man he had really bad intentions. And the stuff that I won't get into it because it literally caused two people, when I told them what happened, they both threw up. They both vomited. So I'm not going to do that to your audience.
All right. I appreciate that. Now, so this thing that you've just told us is really radical, that you're actually revealing what this guy was trying to pin you down to in terms of like a security oath or taking a secret oath, and yet you had not agreed, and yet he was already threatening you that if you broke the oath, he had every right to kill you.
That's right. That's right.
Now, how long ago did that happen?
This happened around February of 2017. February 2017, I believe, give or take.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. So we're still completely on your case as late as 2017. Can you bring us up to date between there and now?
Definitely. So basically, what happened was, when Donald Trump was on his campaign trail, I spent like $5,000 on mailings. I mean, I literally, in every congressman, sent out documents to every one of them. And I was like, well, it's not going to hurt anything. Just send it to him. So I gave him my file when he was on the campaign trail. As soon as I would say somewhere in December, because I'm really bad with dates. I have to go back to my big book to look through it. But somewhere in December, someone, let's just say, who has connections, took my story and sent it to Donald Trump. Now, all the time up until Trump took office, it was right around his inauguration, I would say within 2 weeks of that, I've had to do very strange things to just stay alive. And all of a sudden, I noticed, I was like, oh my God, I'm not being attacked anymore. The people that would follow me, like, let's just say, in 2016, late 2016, I had another attack. I left the house to go to Home Depot. I grabbed something, I forget what it was. I came back with my friend, and I said, do you smell that? He says, yeah, it smells like, I said, yeah, it smells like perfume, doesn't it? I says, you need to get in the bathroom now and strip down. And I said, we need to do hazmat procedures ASAP. They just used an NAV to fly over my house and spray this area. And sure enough, that was true. So that was as late as 2016 with the last physical attack. And so as soon as Trump comes into office, I can't necessarily, it's probably not wise for me to go into every detail, but there was enough evidence that I was being followed by someone, but it wasn't the bad guys anymore. And praise God, this man Trump, I don't care what the media says, I don't care. Whatever, he's working at multi-dimensional chess, and it'll take us years to catch up to what he's doing. But he's on the level, and he's with it. He really understands what's going on. Right. And I did have contacts and asked. I said, so these were people on his campaign trail that were assisting, for security. And they said, yeah, he knows full well about nanotechnology. I said, well, then he's going to survive. He's going to get through this, because that's the stuff they're doing nowadays.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just, about the story about his security guard, on the golf course in England, or was it Scotland? I'm not sure. But at any rate, that was, I guess, had a heart attack. They gave him a heart attack and he died.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. God bless his soul. So now I want to bring in some aspects of positivity to all this, because first I have to do one more negative thing that would be considered negative, informative. There's documents that I came across in 2013, and there was a blog, and I was doing research, and I found this blog and downloaded these two documents. It's the Nano domestic quell documents. And that same week, someone in intelligence, I ended up somehow, my first contact through people with clearances was through Leo Zagami. Then over the years, I started to build, somehow just God put these people in my path. So this agent sent me paperwork and said, oh my God, this is real. And I printed the documents and tried to get them up on YouTube. And within the course of I'd say maybe 2 weeks, that's when I was attacked again physically. So I was like, well, maybe it's not the right time to put those documents out there in a video. So basically what we have here is a document in 2013, June. This is the Department of Defense, and I'll try to do what I can to get it into the camera. But again, these were open source, so I can't get in trouble for having them. Okay. So that's the Nano domestic quell. That's just the first page. The more important page is this one here. And you can see these more readily on a video that's on YouTube that says X Nun exposes Jesuits and remedies and reveals remedies, or shares remedies, whatever, an urgent call to all Americans. So basically, this is a document under Obama's administration, and it says the following. Nano domestic quell. All right, now before we even get into this, domestic quell, not nano foreign quell, nano domestic quell. I'd ask your listeners to go further and do some research into, since what happened in 1933, where there was a new codification of the Emergency Banking Relief Act, which was based upon an old World War I statute, October of 1917. And there was a provision in the rules of our country here to protect our country against enemies that are foreign to the United States. So this is a good thing. You want to do that. Now here's the problem. In the language of, and Eric Phelps and I pick on this guy, Franklin Damnable Roosevelt, he comes out with a proclamation 2040 on March 9, 1933, and it basically gets into emergency and bank holiday. Emergency is basically the same thing as being under military rule. It's a banking emergency, but it's also a state of a military occupation. We're not under, the utmost, situation where we have to deal with that. But this is on the books where we have military precedent is the rule for all law in this country since 1933. There's an overlay.
Yes.
And
actually, well, I've actually heard that we are actually under that. I heard it recently, that actually we are under that provision of military whatever.
Military law, but not martial law. Military
no, okay, martial. But actually I think that there may be another level. But go ahead. I don't know enough about it to talk about it.
Okay, so, yeah, and I could be wrong too, but that's just the way I separate it out in my head. So basically, all this is saying is that now, therefore, I, Franklin D. Roosevelt, President of the United States of America, in view of such continuing national emergency, it's temporary, by the way, temporary, and by virtue of the authority vested in me by Section 5B, the Act of October 6, 1917, they're not being honest about it. They're saying the Act of October 6. They're not saying it was the Trading with the Enemy Act, 40 Statute 411, as amended by the Act of March 9, 1933, do hereby claim, order, direct, and declare that all the terms and provisions of this proclamation of March 6, 1933, and the regulations and orders issued thereunder are hereby continued in full force and effect until further proclamation by the President. Bottom line, what happened here is now they've basically wedded us to the birth certificate as surety. And now that we're surety, we have no rights. We're basically collateral. And so I'm sharing that because when I get into nano domestic quell, it's because there's a foreign power that I believe the Jesuits, like Kay Griggs says, that nano domestic quell is indicative of the fact that there is a war against us. So here we go. National Nano Domestic Quell Protocols for Phase 4. DTFN estimates rates in Phase 4 updated compliance for NDQ. Current total infection rate for United States general population at this time was 87.2. Obviously, it's going to be higher now. Projected infection for general U.S. populace by January 2014 is estimated to reach 98%. Total infection for ages 18 and above may reach 99%. DTFN projects dispersal mediums will require additional resources for Phase 4 of NDQ. DTFN recommends an increase in the following medium inflows and outflows specific to liquid dispersal. And it goes on to percentages, but they list Pepsi-Cola, 9.9%, Nestle, Chicago and Atlanta municipal water supplies, Danone, Coca-Cola, Los Angeles municipal, Seattle municipal. Then it says further, Dispersal outflows have shown significant improvement in population infection rates. Recommended inflow increases deployed in October 2012 resulted in a net increase of infection rates by 0.82%, slightly exceeding projections. DTFN assures DoD compliance for Phase 4 will be completed 1 week ahead of schedule. No further recommendations have been submitted by DTFN for Phase 5 as expected. An expected update to outflow estimate rates will be forthcoming before Phase 5 initialization. So obviously, these guys are proud of what they're doing. They're saying improvement in population infection rates.
Okay, now let me stop you there. So what is infection of what? Nano? I mean, what are you saying?
Nano domestic quell. Nano, that's right.
Wow, that's just amazing. Now that document, where did you get that document?
This was I first saw on a blog, and I do have records of that blog in this pile over here. Basically, I found it on a blog within, I think maybe within a week of it being launched on the website. I made an anonymous comment to try to give people hope. And I basically said, listen, there's a remedy for this. You can clean yourself out. Go to this toxicologist. I'm not making money by sending you to her. You know, go to Melinda, go to the toxicologist, clean your body out. And within, I don't know, a few days from that, all the comments were removed and deleted. And I think it's going to be a good idea for me to make a video about that. I'll do that. But basically, it's this. Then I received it from someone with a clearance. Someone actually sent me the documents. I was like, well, that's serendipity. I said, because I just looked this up and I saw it and I was like, I wasn't sure if it was real. And then I had someone with a clearance literally send it to me, a very high clearance, and said, oh my God, this is real. This is in line with what you're talking about. So I kept the documents all these years. But I will be happy to do what I can to make a miniature, maybe a 5-minute video about what my findings were and explain where I found the document, because that would probably be useful.
So the things, okay, this is where one, you know, for the listeners, you know, the viewers. So this is where people can understand. You know, there are a lot of targeted, we call them targeted individuals out there. Or they call themselves that, whatever you want to say. And people that don't even know they're targeted, of course, they're targeted. And if you're talking about a rate of infection with this nano, that in essence it's going to have the same kinds of markers that you had in your own analysis of your nano sort of invasion, right? So,
absolutely. But
so people that have these symptoms will definitely be able to look at your sort of list of symptoms and then your, you know, the nano that they put into you, and then use perhaps your method that you're suggesting to get rid of a lot of it. But this is important. You know, this is actually revealing. And you're saying at this point, according to that document, there is a 99 or 98% infection rate. Are they referring to global Okay, I think we're back online, and I'm hoping this is working now. So, and I hope this is the same show. This is really kind of bizarre because of the way YouTube, Google works. It did say resume, and so we're attempting to do this now. I can go into the chat and see if indeed we are still on the same, what you call a same stream. So if you'll stand by 1 second, I'm going to do that. That means the people watching, we were knocked off the air temporarily, it looks like, and now I'm putting this back on. And of course, they knocked us off right at this opportune moment. So that kind of thing goes on. Okay, so people are saying, yes, we're back. It's working. And we have the same audience as we did before this happened to us. So somehow YouTube or somebody knocked us off YouTube. I don't know if it's YouTube who knocked us off YouTube or if it is, the Department of Defense or whoever the hell it is. But we're back. Okay, so we're back with Sister Keri, and please continue. We were covering some ground right there.
Okay, so yeah, I was getting into the 5G and other technologies like terahertz, and that's used to assist the body to replicate the nano within, right? So here's the positive side, because we're done with all the alerting here. It's now time to get into the remedies. If someone's been introduced to the nano, material, which all of us have through geoengineering, whatever, it's everywhere. You can clean your body out. And I would encourage you to go to a toxicologist, get a urine test, do some hair samples, and just see where you stand on that. Because the nano it could be, it has multiple aspects to it, and based upon the way it's programmed, it, might have more metallic, it might have more plastic, substance, more viral elements to it. The point is you can still clean yourself out.
Okay. Now I'm not sure if we're actually broadcasting correctly here. So, because it looks like the screen is frozen. So hold on 1 second. I'm going to bring you back on and see if this will pick you up. For some reason, I might need to call you again to get this video to work. Okay. You're working on my screen. So I wonder if, okay, I think we're back on. All right, continue, please. So we're now on a positive thing. You're going to talk about how a person can clean this nano out of their body.
Absolutely. So basically, if you've been introduced, there's a wonderful website, and it's a wonderful person named Tony Pantalleresco, and his website is www.augmentinforce.com. You can go there. You can go to YouTube videos and type in Tony Pantalleresco, Pantelleresco. I believe I spelled that correctly. And all his stuff is for free. And he gets into how to prepare your food, how to help your pets out by mixing certain things to kind of mitigate the nanotech, because everyone's being affected by it. So those are all the free resources that are out there, and tremendous, tremendous resource. Tony Pantalleresco is very generous and a loving man. Now, when it comes down to advanced nanotech or nanotech that's military grade, or you're being targeted, that's where you would contact us. You go to clergyvictim.com. You can email us at ctwh@protonmail.ch. And do your best to try to get through to us. I think now the emails are working. I had some interesting things happening that way. But there's also instructions on how to fill out the application on YouTube, and I think Reel.video and other platforms. BitChute might have it. And just type in CTWH program, and it should show you those videos. But you should readily get those from clergyvictim.com, and it's right on the page there with the application. So now the other part that I want to bring up is, while I was on the run, the nun on the run, now I'm the nun with the gun, okay, the smoking gun. Basically, what we have is I was able, by God's grace, to continue to interface with attorneys while I was on the run. And I was able to get them marked no nano. So we can be able to do these things on our food and get it tested and know what products are safe. We don't have anything like that in this country as far as I know. We have, GMO, so forth, labeling and all that. But here we have that nanotechnology is worse than GMO. And the parallels are very similar, but it's called the new asbestos. Nanotechnology is the new asbestos. We also have concerns that in field practicum, I'm trying to put programs together to help people that are first responders, because now there's Department of Justice documents showing we don't have the proper equipment to interface with this sort of thing. A regular person doesn't have the first responder doesn't have the right equipment to handle that. So we're going into many, many projects to try to get resolutions to these things. But with the mark no nano certifications, our objective and our goal is the certification mark is to be used by persons or businesses authorized by the certifier, is intended to certify that the goods provided do not contain any engineered biomolecules, non-organic or toxic ingredient. And it's supposed to be for food, beverages, vitamins, nutritional supplements, clothing, textiles, soaps, shampoos, sunscreens, fragrances, moisturizers, and pet products. And then I'll show you the mark. This will be the mark that goes on the product. And we're going to work with, we already have labs and so forth. So, I'm still acclimating to getting back to a normal life from not being on the run. So I'm doing what I can to launch this effort. And I'll give you another sample what it would look like on food products.
Okay. Now, Sister Keri, I need to. We're continually having the video is freezing. So, what I think, in interest of saving this show, I hope that it's all recorded onto YouTube and that it's going to come together in one video. But what I'd like to do is shut this down and have you back on my show. And we can have you back next week if you like. And you seem like you might even have more stuff for us. If you'd like to talk, even if it was for 15 minutes, we'll do a video for 15 minutes of this, kind of wrap up. But I'm afraid we're going to lose I don't want to lose the connection. I don't want to lose the show. You understand? Are you there? Hello? Hello. Okay, you're freezing up. They're definitely interfering with us. Did you hear what I said?
Yes, next week is perfect. 15 minutes for the positive stuff.
Okay, and you've got longer if you want it.
Oh, perfect. Okay, great.
Yeah, we can go over anything and everything you've got because you are really amazing, and I'm so excited to have connected with you. And I know that my viewers they want to know the rate of infection that we're at this level right now in terms of the United States. And if you have it for worldwide or you can get it, we'd love to see that too.
That'll be my homework.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you so much. I'm going to close this down now. I want to thank the audience for being there. I'm sorry we can't get to your good questions tonight. We're going to do this again. I don't trust that YouTube will keep this. Otherwise, it will disappear, and then we'd have to do the whole thing over again. I don't want to have to do that. So
hang on me. It's okay. Hang up.
All right. So I'm going to thank you very much for being with us, and we'll have you back next week, and we'll continue this discussion. Fascinating, excellent information. And please take care of yourself and be safe.
Absolutely. You too.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Take care. Okay. So that's, we're going to quit Skype right now. And I'm going to just briefly come here on screen and just say that, this is, she's really done her homework. She really has fabulous information. It's so vital at this time. And we will have her back next week. We'll go over the various things she says, protocols, etc., for clearing your body out of the nano, and we'll also get more information about the infection rate, etc., etc. the ingredients in the Nano, the weaponized, so to speak, military grade, etc. So thank you again for watching today, and take care. And I'll be back. I've got videos that I'm editing. We're about to release my interview with Richard Allen Miller that was done at his home, which is quite fun and fascinating. And then we also have very fascinating, I don't know what it is, but I've got another whistleblower from the Vatican who I interviewed in Yelm, and we'll be putting that up as well. So and we've got our Egypt video, and we're going to go to Egypt in 2019 in spring. This spring we've got dates in April, I believe. So I'm going to publish all of that. So please stay tuned, and thank you for your support. Take care. Bye-bye.